Hi and welcome to GeeksforGeeks. Today we would be doing the post-contest analysis of GFG Weekly Contest 91. Let's talk about the feedback of this contest. If you ask me, the feedback of this contest would that this contest was good enough, but the first problem had a little bit confusing problem statement. Like it can be made a little bit simpler, but if you have a thinking that you need to make it seem a little bit hard, then obviously if you just make it the problem statement easier, the first problem was very easy, to be honest. Like a person who doesn't even belong from a coding background can easily crack it. Moving to the next problem, it was a variation of a very standard problem, like a very well known problem. And then the last problem was a problem which I liked very much. Why? Because it involves the usage of a technique which is very important but uncommon, but a very easy thing. Okay, so we have 11 live viewers at the moment. I don't think so many people would require the post contest analysis of today, but still we would be doing it. So let's start. So let's start with the very linear solution even didn't work. Okay, so let's start with the very first problem. Let me just turn off this. Yep, and let's start. Okay, let's talk about the very first problem. So in the very first problem, so like I'm not even sharing my screen. So entire screen, and this should be good to go. And this. Okay, fair enough. So now when we start off, we are seeing that we are given a matrix. So basically it is told here that we are given a grid, but it is basically a matrix. Okay. So now it is told that we are given a matrix kind of thing. Okay, let's just first draw a matrix. Okay. It's done. Now it is told that at some point of time there are civilians. What do you mean by civilians? Like you can just say that people are standing here and there. Okay, so let's draw some people. Like this is one person, this is one person, this is one person, this is one person, and then there are terrorists waiting in the grid also. So suppose this is a terrorist, this is a terrorist, and this is a terrorist, and let's say this again is a terrorist. Okay, and now you are given that you have an unlimited supply of army. Have an unlimited supply of army. Okay, of army. I am writing array. Okay, basically what you need to do is you need to draw walls. Let's just not talk about army or something. Let's talk about simple walls. Okay, so you're given that there are some terrorists, there are some people, and you need to build up some walls. And at each point of the matrix or at each cell of the matrix, only one thing can be there, either a wall, either a terrorist, either a person. Okay, so let's do say the same thing in Hindi so that people would have a better understanding. एक मैट्रिक्स दिया गया, उसमें कुछ लोग है, कुछ टेररिस्ट है, और हमें यह टास्क है कि हमें वॉल्स बनाने हैं. Okay, in what manner should we draw the walls? We are told that the terrorist can move in upwards, downwards, right, and left. It can only move in four direction. It can't move in diagonal direction. So now we need to protect the civilians so that terrorists won't be able to touch them. Like we need to protect the civilians in such a way that no civilians are harmed by a terrorist. So what we can do is we can draw a wall around each person. We can draw a wall around each person that is standing in some cell. So we can say that we would draw a wall here, 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 so that no terrorist would be able to attack this person. We can draw a wall for this person here, here, and here. No person would be able to attack this. We can draw a wall here, 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 and no person would be able to attack this. Okay, Red are all terrorists. But we can't really protect this person. Why? Because we can draw a wall here, we can draw a wall here, we can draw a wall here. But from here, the terrorist can go up and kill this person. Okay, the terrorist can go up and kill this person. So basically, this won't work. Okay, this won't work, and this person can't be saved. So now you need to build up the test cases or solve up this problem in this manner. So now looking at the solution itself, I don't think there is much to think about. We can see that we can't really save a person when the fourth direction, like in this person only, like suppose it can be said that suppose there is a monster. Okay, suppose how to draw a monster. Okay, let's suppose this is me. Okay, let's suppose this is me. Okay, this is me, and this person. Okay, like let's draw this kind of thing. Yes, suppose this is my girlfriend and I want to stay away from her because a fight between us has happened. Okay, so if I want to stay away from her, then I can simply close the door. If she is away from me, I can simply close the door here and she would be away from me. But if she is very close to me, like I can't, like in the same room or the door is here, then there is no point in closing the door. So in the same manner, if the terrorist is here only, then where can we build up a wall? Like this person is here and the terrorist is here only. We can't build up a wall on the border. We need to build up a wall on the cell, but there is no cell in between a civilian and a terrorist. So if there is no cell, no cell between a person and a terrorist was this one, then we can't protect him. We can't protect him. Else we can protect him. Why? Because we have unlimited supply of walls. Okay, we don't care how many walls we build. We have unlimited supply, we don't care how many we build. So if a person has space around him, we can build up a wall around him. But if we have no space to build up a wall, then obviously we can't protect him. So what we can do is, for each person, we can just check that if a terrorist is standing in its fourth direction or not. We would just check left, right, up, and down, and that would be enough. Okay. So there is one more thing to discuss. So am I clear till this point? Can I have a quick yes or no? Till then, I would be drawing just one more. Just quickly reply if this thing is clear or not. Then I would talk about the implementation because there are still some confusions left for the implementation. Like we would talk about implementation, how to we would implement it. So am I clear till this point? Just give me a quick yes or no. Okay, this line, third line, yes, absolutely. Second में समझ ही नहीं आया, गलत किया, third one. Okay, fair enough. So there are 35 viewers at this point of time. Quickly like the video and quickly tell me if these things are clear to you or not. Aditya Raj, can you quickly tell me that at what point you are not able to understand? Okay, so now let's go back. Okay, fair enough, we are done. So now see, if a person is standing at this point, then I can check his up, down, left, and right. But let's say the person is standing at this point. So if you check his right side, then it would be out of bound. If you check his upside, it would be out of bound. So before checking the fourth direction, we need to check if it is out of bound or not. Okay. So what we can do is we can simply design a function here. So let's code today in VS Code only. Like, am I visible? Yes, I'm visible. Okay. This is the code itself. Okay. So now this is the part. The test cases and all are already loaded here. So as I'm a very lazy person, so I would consider writing this as a itself. Fair enough? Do I make sense? Just quickly give me a 0 or 1 in the chat. Okay, so now I would say, okay, so now I would say that I would design a function which would tell me that if it is good to visit that point or not. Like someone would tell me that if this is invalid point or not. Okay, so what I can do is I can design a bool safe, and I can say this is the point we are trying to visit, and this is the value of int n and int n and int m. So we would say if x is negative or y is negative, because the indexing can never be negative, or x value is greater than equal to n, or y's value is greater than equal to m. Why? Because if the size of the array is 5, then the indexing would be from 0 to n minus 1, or 5 minus 1, that is 4. So it can never cross n or can never be n. So if these are all the scenarios, we would return a false value. If no scenarios like this happens, then we would return a true value. Like, yes, this is safe enough. Okay. Now we would go down here. Now we would start coding this. Okay. So now we would start the iteration on the matrix. So for int, like the whole matrix, for int I is equals to an I plus plus, like using a nested loop to just iterate over the matrix itself. For int j is less than m and j plus plus. If you don't know this, kindly just see that iterating over a matrix using two loops. Okay. So now I would say if the current person A and J is a civilian, we are only interested in protecting all the civilians. So if that person is a civilian, then we would visit all the four direction of him. We would visit all the four direction of him. But how we would visit it, that is a different thing. Let us see this also. So basically we can visit it using loops. But let us see this. See, this is 0 0. This is 0 1. This is 0 2. This is 1 0. This is 1 1. This is 1 2. This is 2 0. This is 2 1. And this is 2 2. So if I am standing at this position and I go up, then this would be like, this is x value, this is y value. So if I go up, then we have x minus 1 and y remains the same. So x is decreased by 1 and y remains the same. If we go on the right hand side, y is plus 1 and x remains the same. So y we add plus 1 and x remains the same. Okay. If we move on the left hand side, x remains the same, y gets decreased. X remains the same, y gets decreased. If we go down, y is increased by 1 and x remains, x is increased by 1 becomes 2, but y remains the same. So now what we can do is we can simply add these consecutive values. Like if we add minus 1 and 0 to 1 1, we would go up. If we add 0 and 1 to this point, we would go to a different direction. Like we can visit all the four direction by just adding these all values. Okay, we can go up, down, left and right by just adding the consecutive values of this array. So what we can do is we can simply write down this array itself. Okay, just remember these all values, and let's go here. Let's remove this. Just remember this value, take a screenshot. Let's go back. Now we would write in here itself dx of size 4 is equals to 1. Okay, 1 minus 1 0 0. Fair enough. And then we would have dy of size 4. Dy of 4 is equals to 0 0 1 and minus 1. We would have this. Okay, and we would just add dx of I, dx of x and dx of y. Now whenever we find a civilian, okay, we would paste this here. whenever we would find a civilian, let's just uh, hide everything so that, okay, now it is looking like the same one that is on an online judge. Okay, so if there is a civilian, we would check all its four direction. So we would say for int k is equals to 0, k is less than 4, and k plus plus. We would add the consecutive values. So now we would say int new row is equals to the value of I plus dx of k. Okay, int new column is equals to the value of j and dy of k. Like this, just add the consecutive values. Now first we would check if it is within the boundary or not. If it is within the boundary or not. First we would check that. So we would say safe of new x and new row and new column. If the new row and new column is safe, and if new row and new column is safe, and then we would say if it is safe and it is not filled up by a of new and new column is not equal to a terrorist. If it is not equal to a terrorist, then if it is like a terrorist is just like, first we would see if it is within the boundary or not. Then we would check if in fourth direction it is bound by a terrorist or not. If we see a terrorist in either of the ways, okay, we would return a 0 from this point only. If towards the end also, if we are not able to see a terrorist, then we would return 1. That yes, we have not seen a terrorist bounding a person. So yes, this person is, every person can be protected. If any of the person can't be protected, we can say that yes, civilians can't be protected. Now let us just run this and see. Yes, this is working fine for the sample test case. Now let us just try to submit this. Now let us just submit this and see. Now I would just share my tab itself, Chrome tab, save civilians, and this. Yes, it's done. So now tell me the line number at which you are not able to understand. I would be waiting. Okay. So can we do second one? Okay, sir, I applied the same concept using terrorist. So using terrorist, you applied the same concept. This won't work. Why? Because it might be a scenario that suppose at the first point there is a person, and at this point there is a terrorist. So if you go around the terrorist, you won't find a person. But this terrorist can come here, go up, and attack this person because the terrorist can move. Same logic with terrorist would be better, less comparison. So same logic with the terrorist won't be better. Why? Because it is not known that terrorist would always be less than the person there. Okay, so you can do it, to be honest. Like what you can do is you can fill each of the places with this. Okay, but in the worst scenario, at each point you would be looking in four direction. So if for one point you would be doing four iteration. So for n square point you would be doing n square multiplied by 4, which is less than 10 to the power 8. So it is very easy to understand. Okay, so I think I'm good to go. I don't see any errors that is still persisting in your head, so I would be moving forward. Okay, I will stop the screen sharing and let's talk about the next problem. Okay, so as of now, don't read this problem. This problem is a little bit like, I'm not a Marvel person. I'm sorry, but I'm not a Marvel person. Okay, so if you read up the problem statement of the second one, I would get confused myself because I'm not a person of Marvel. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's understand the problem in a simple way where I won't also be confused. Okay, so let's move forward with this idea. Okay, so now let's take a scenario. Okay, so now suppose we are given different houses. Okay, suppose this is my house. Okay, suppose this is me here at this point of time. Suppose this is A. Like suppose this is Siddharth, the Siddharth's house. Let's take some viewers from the viewers. Mohit, this is Mohit's house. This is Mohit's house. This is Amit's house. This is Aditya's house. Okay, and this is Astha's house. Okay, and any more we would. Nitin, suppose this is Nitin's house. Okay, suppose there are people around us. So now there are some network of roads, okay, around it. So suppose I have a direct path from my house to Aditya's house. Aditya has a direct path from his house to Mohit's house. Then suppose I also have a direct path to Mohit's house also. Then Amit's house and then Astha's house. And then suppose Nitin's house, I can go here. And suppose this kind of figure is there. Okay. And in between, let's say that suppose at this point, like let's say, yep, let's say Aditya is a police officer. Okay, let's say Aditya is a police officer. Aditya is a police officer. So now everyone wants to know what is the minimum time required to reach Aditya in case of emergency. So suppose my family is asking me, okay, Aditya is the only police in this whole town. So how much time is required to reach Aditya? Amit is also asking, Astha's family is also asking, Nitin's family is also asking, Mohit's family is also asking. Okay. So we can say that this is an undirected graph and it has no weights and all. So this is a kind of graph which has no weights, like this is an unweighted and undirected graph. Like if I can go from my house to Amit's house, Amit can also come from his house to my house. This is a two-way road. So it is an undirected road, non-weighted. So if you are given a non-weighted undirected network of path and Aditya is the police officer, which algorithm would you use to solve up this problem? Which algorithm would you use to solve up this problem? Tell me. Which would algorithm will you use? Quickly tell me. Like there are people around and there is only one police station. The graph is unweighted and the graph is undirected. So which algorithm would you use to find? Can we take edges as a unit vector? Yes, absolutely. The weights of the edges. Okay, what about others? Okay, DFS doesn't find the shortest path algorithm. DFS doesn't belong from shortest path algorithm. Okay, what about others? So yes, if you are told that this kind of scenario do exist, then obviously you need to do something known as BFS. And if you're not getting the idea how BFS is coming into picture, then consider learning about breadth first search, because this is nothing but level 2 of breadth first search. This problem is nothing but level 2 of breadth first search. First learn about breadth first search, then come back to this problem, and then you would understand and you would learn a new thing. So now I would simply do a BFS from Aditya's house and I would be able to find the shortest path to each and every one. Okay, so this is done. And what would be the time complexity? The time complexity of this approach would be, the time complexity of this naive approach would be nothing but big O of n. Okay, simple enough. Now suppose Mohit also, like Amit, let's take the example of Amit. Let's say Amit also became a police officer recently in the town. Now, as both are police officers and both are of the same rank, okay, now people want to know what is the time required, what is the distance of the nearest police officer. Now people just are only worried about police officer. Now if Astha's parent ask him that what is the minimum distance to reach a police station, so what is the minimum distance to reach a police officer, she won't tell Aditya's name, but rather she would tell Amit's name. Why? Because the distance is very less. If she goes to Aditya, she would require 1, 2 and 3, but if she goes to Amit, she would require 1 unit of time. So now we have two police officers. It might be a scenario we can have three police officers. It might be a scenario four number of police officers. But as of now, we have two police officers at this point. So I want to know on the distance of the nearest police officer. I want to know the distance of that only. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm not worried whether I go to Aditya, whether I go to Amit. I just want to know what is the distance of the nearest police officer. So if I'm concerned about knowing the distance of the nearest police officer, what I would do is I would do a BFS from this point, which would, let's take the example of Astha only because he would be the one where we can analyze and test. So I would do a BFS from Aditya and Astha would be telling me that three distances there. And I would do again a DFS from Amit and Astha would have a better way, that is only distance of 1. So basically, we would do a BFS from all the police officers and the minimum value would be collected at each person. Okay, minimum value would be collected from each person. Like for Amit, earlier if we do a transaction from Amit, like let's do a BFS from Amit. So if we do a BFS from Adit, Amit initially would receive a distance of 2, like following this and this. But next time when we do it using Aditya, we would be just getting a distance of 1. So yes, Amit has a better way, so we would update it. So basically, we would simply do BFS from each of the police officer. And the minimum of that would be there. So what would be the time complexity? So for one police officer, we did big O of n. So let's suppose, so for one police, we did big O of n time complexity. So for q number of police, you would be doing q multiplied by big O of n, that is nothing but big O of n multiplied by q. Okay, q multiplied by big O of n. This would be the time complexity. Do I make sense? Give me a quick yes or no. But can we solve using DFS? DFS? No. Depth first search can't solve a shortest path algorithm problem. What about others? What about others? Am I clear till this point or not? Just quickly tell me. I had the problem or it's early. Okay, fair enough. So now let's say that the number of nodes are 10 to the power 5. Let's say 10 to the power. So suppose n is equals to 10 to the power 5 and q is also equals to 10 to the power 5. So q multiplied by n would make it 10 to the power 10, which is greater than 10 to the power 8. So definitely we would be getting a time limit exceeded. We would be definitely getting a time limit exceeded if you do this. Okay. So what to do in this scenario, Siddharth? what to do in this scenario. Basically, what I say is do nothing. But what is BFS algorithm? BFS algorithm is this, that we insert the source. BFS algorithm is inserting the source at this point and then running a while loop while the queue is not empty. We would insert everything in a queue. Okay. Then we would visit the front. Then we would remove the front. I'm doing a revision of BFS. We would remove the front and then insert the unvisited neighbors of front. Okay, so this goes on. This is only BFS. We would insert the source while the queue is not empty. We would visit the front, then we would remove the front. We would insert the unvisited neighbors of the front. What do you mean by front and these all things? So basically you can visualize queue in the form of a queue in real life. So suppose this is a ticket counter that is going up. So a person who came up in the line first would be the very first person who would be going out. So first come, first serve, first in, first out is followed by queue data structure. And then if I told you that I want to check who is the first person, so the front person would be this person. Okay, and if I remove the person, then this person would be removed first. So front of the queue, so if the given queue is 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4 4, let's take the example, let's take 1 2 3 4. Then if I ask you the front of the queue, then you would return me 1. If I ask you to remove from the queue, then you would remove 1 itself. Okay, this is it about queue, nothing else. Okay, so now this was the algorithm of BFS. How many of you agree with this? How many of you agree with this? Give me a quick one, that how many of you remember this and how many of you don't remember this. To be honest, I have absolutely bad handwriting. I solved it using DFS and it worked. Fair enough, let me know also. But DFS is not a shortest path algorithm. The problem were too easy considering what is being asked right now in coding assessment. True. I highly agree with this. Okay, agrees? Now let's move forward. So what we can do is just replace a very small thing. Okay, instead of insert the source, I would say insert all the sources. If you insert all the sources and start doing a BFS, then that would be what you know. This would be multi-source BFS. Multi-source BFS. Okay, just do nothing. Just learn about BFS. Come back to this question, insert all the sources before starting off into the BFS thing, and everything else would remain the same. Just instead of inserting one source, insert all the sources, and that would be done. Now this would become multi-source BFS, and that would give you the correct value out of this. Nothing else. Just earlier we were inserting only one source, na? Now we would loop through all the sources and we would just insert everything. Okay, that was it. Nothing else. Now let's go back and let's quickly solve up this problem. So if I start from 0, it didn't work. Any reason? Because it might be a scenario that 0 is not the starting point. So I would start coding from this point. As you know, I'm a very lazy person. So I would just say, okay, now let's talk about this problem also. Okay, I didn't talk about this problem. So this problem is absolutely the same thing. Okay. So it is told that there is a bomb that is present. Okay. Okay. So it is told that 0 represents an open space, B represents a bomb, and W represents a wall. Okay. So now we are told that we can only use open spaces. Okay, like open spaces are there and there is a wall. Okay, so basically there are blockages and there is an open space. 0 open space, and let's talk about this. Okay, let's talk about the sample test case itself. Hmm. Now let me explain you this problem also, because only police officers, me, Atsa, Nitin, and all won't complete the question itself. Okay, so now it is told that there is a bomb. There are two bombs at this point. Okay, and how much time would be required to affect these open spaces? How much time would be required to open this spaces? So see, walls can't be affected by bombs. So walls have a -1 value. -1, -1. So this value is done, this value is done. Now this is the bomb itself. So the time required to visit the source is 0. It is 0. So now see, this person would be visited by this bomb. So 1. Then this person would visit this bomb. So 1. Now this bomb can go here and then go here. So 2. So value 2. Then this bomb can go here. So value 1 and value 1. So basically 0 tells us that this is a path. So we need to travel from 0 and we need to check what is the minimum distance from either of the bombs. So we are told that use 0 as path and tell me the minimum distance from either of the bomb, and you can't use walls, of course. So use 0 as the path and tell me the minimum distance from either of the bomb, and you can just move left, right, up and down. So this is just like the same thing, like there are many people, there is a network of roads, and I'm to told you what is the distance of the nearest police station. Okay, I'm not a Marvel fan, so I can't really explain this. Do I make sense up till this point? May I move to the implementation? So if I start from 0, it didn't work. Why? Because it might be a scenario that 0 is a wall itself. Because see, if you start from 0, okay, let's see, let's say that you started off from a 0. Okay, and then there is a bomb here also, there is a bomb here also. So this bomb would be nearer to this wall, but you might be assigning this bomb. We want the minimum distance. That is why you were not getting the minimum value, so it didn't work. Okay, open spaces, sorry. 0 is equals to the open spaces. So in the third question, I used line sweep algorithm and prefix sum. Still, it gives TLE. Okay, we would talk about it. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about this. So now I think I can start the coding part. So as you know, I'm a very lazy person. So would be writing B for building, and N and M would remain the same itself. Okay. Now we would initialize a vector of n cross m. Okay. So we would initialize a vector of int. Okay. Of distance array, like D array, distance array. Okay. Of size n, and then vector of int. Okay. And size m. So see, we want to find the minimum distance. Minimum distance would be stored here. That means we need to previously assign it with a large value. So that would be 1e9 itself. Okay. 1e9 itself. Then we would initialize a pair to move forward. Okay, q of pair. Okay, because this is a coordinate, we need to insert the coordinate. Coordinate is in the form of x and y, so that is why we need pairs. Okay, now we would push all the sources in the queue. I told you. So let's see this thing only. Push all the sources in the queue. So we would push all the sources because Siddharth Hazra told me. Okay, so now we would find all the sources. So for int I is equals to 0, I is less than n, and I plus plus. And then I would say for int j is equals to 0, j is less than m, and j plus plus. And now we would say if the building is a bomb, bombs are the sources here. Now, if building of I and j is equals to the bomb itself, like if this is a source, then I would push it in the queue. Okay, q dot push I comma j. I would push it in the queue, and then I would mark it visited also. Okay, so distance of d of I cross j is equal to 0 itself. Okay, d of I cross j is equal to the distance itself. So now, yep, this is done up till this point. Let us clear the formatting. Yep, this is done. So now we come at this point. All the sources are inserted at this point. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to tell, like we need to go on all the four directions. So here we would also use the same dx and dy array. So we would same use the dx and dy array. So we would paste it here, and we would use the same safe function to tell me that the point we are trying to visit is within the boundary or not. Okay, the same thing we would use here itself. Okay, so now I would come here and the I would start the BFS itself. So while the queue is not empty, we would do the same thing. While queue is not empty, while the queue is not empty, we would find the front of the queue. So auto front is equals to q dot. So int x is equals to q dot front dot first, and int y is equals to q dot front dot second. Okay, we are finding the front x and y. Okay, then can we visit it or not? Okay, can we visit it or not? So we would say if it is safe to visit. So we would we would try to go on all the four directions. So for int k, let's copy the same thing. So for int k is equals to 0, let's copy this and let's say that here it is x and y, x and then y. While it is, while we are just visiting nr and ny. So if the new row and new column, if it is within the boundary, so we would say safe of new row comma new column comma n comma m. First we would see that if it is within the boundary or not. Like it is a matrix kind of thing. So we first need to see if it is within the boundary or not. Okay. And then we would check if it is valid and sorry about that. Yep. And the distance array of nr and nc is greater than the distance of nr, okay, like x and y. This was the front of the queue plus 1. Okay. If it is greater, then we would copy the same thing up till here and we would assign. If this is better, we would assign it. Okay. If we are able to assign it, then q dot push the value nr and nc. We would push up this value. Q dot push nr and nc. Yep, this should work. And this would be this itself. Yes, this is done. Now what we would do is, if we are not able to visit a place, okay, if we are not able to visit a place, then we would be saying that, okay, we need to remove this also. Q dot pop also. So am I clear till this point or not? We would be moving in all the four direction. We would be taking out the front. So this is just taking visit the front, visiting the front, and then we are removing the front, and visiting the neighbors. So here we are visiting the neighbors of x and y. This is visiting the neighbors and visiting the unvisited neighbors. So if we are able to improve on the distance, that means we are visiting the neighbors. Okay. So now tell me if things are clear to you or not. Just tell me quickly. Mhm. Just give me a quick. What is the size of your vector? The size of my vector is n cross n. It is basically a matrix, 2D vector. So am I clear till this point or not? Give me a quick yes or no. Give me a quick yes or no if I am clear till this point or not. And it is not equal to wall. Yes. Give me a quick yes. Okay. Okay. So there is one more thing, and it is not equal to a wall. Like b of I, b of nr and nc, if it is not equal to a wall, if it is safe to visit the new, like if the position we are trying to visit is safe, and it is not equal to wall, because we can't really use the walls to go, like it is told here, no, use the zero as the path. So if it is not equal to wall, then we can move forward. And if we are able to improve, then we would simply do it. And then at the end, okay, at the end, all the places we were not able to visit. So I would just copy this for loop here, and I would say if b of I is equals to 1e9, that means earlier we started off with 1e9 and we still have 1e9. That means I was not able to visit this particular thing. So I would say that b of I dash j can't be visited. B of I and j can't be visited. sorry, d, like d of I and j. Okay, let's iterate over this. Okay, so distance of n cross m. Okay, sorry, z. If distance of n cross m is equals to -1, then distance of I dash j is still would be equal to -1. So I would say that if we started off with the distance as 1e9, but still the distance is 1e9, then we are not able to visit it. Suppose I am told that Siddharth, from Noida, can you go to Chandigarh and tell me the number of kilometers? And he told me that the number of kilometers are 1000. And he came back and asked me, Siddharth, what is the number of kilometers? I told him 1000. That just means that I have not calculated the distance. So this just means I started off with a very large value and still that value is large only. That means that the value is not being calculated. That means I have not gone to Chandigarh. That means I can't visit Chandigarh. That is why the value is -1. Okay. So at the end, when we are done, we would return the distance array. Now let us save this. Let us run this, and we have passed it. So now we would simply copy this and we would see if we can get an AC or not. Yep. Now let us just see if we can get an AC or not. Yes, we got an AC. So now let's talk about the third problem, which is a very interesting problem in my point of view. Like after a lot of amount of time, I'm explaining this problem. Like I explain the multi-source BFS a lot. I explain this kind of puzzle-based problems a lot. But this problem is absolute beauty. Okay. So am I done? Can you give small example why push all the bombs? To be honest, you don't need the example. Okay, you can just learn about the theory. Like, so pushing all the bombs, pushing all the source in multi-source BFS is an algorithm of multi-source BFS. You are asking an idea of an intuition of an algorithm. Okay, I would be telling you. So see, it's basically that. Okay, like we would first push all the sources. Okay, and then the first source, like every source would have a distance of 0. Every source would have a distance of 0. And the first source to visit a particular point, that means every source is starting from point 0. Suppose every source is standing here. They all started racing in different direction. Suppose someone is sitting here and this person touched him first. That means that this is the smallest distance from this person to this person. That is why this person is most ideal for this one. That is why the first person to touch the first one is this. If we make every distance as 0, we make every source at the same point. Why? Because we just collect all the sources, we make them stand at a particular starting position, and then we unleash them and we tell that now go and run in different direction. Whoever is able to reach the first point, he would be assigned with that point. Why third problem was giving a TLE? Basically, the most common mistake you were doing is you were assigning it, you were taking a very large array of 10 to the power 5. But internally, it is using a lot of test cases. It is not mentioned in the question, but I asked the problems that are like, to be honest, when you see my submissions also, okay, like if you see my submissions also, I got a time limit exceeded. Okay, first was a runtime error, so I didn't, like, I just solved it. First I found it runtime limit exceeded. Okay, so why? Because this is what I do. I don't really see the solution directly. I try to solve it on my own. I saw a time limit exceeded. What was this solution? I was using 10 to the power 5 as as you were doing it, constant and I was directly defining an array like this. Okay, same thing you are doing now, but I was not able to get an AC. Then I saw that there are no test cases mentioned. Like here also no mention of test cases. At no point any test cases is mentioned. Like if you just search the whole search the whole the test case is not mentioned at any point. See, 0 comma 0, 0 by 0, that means test case are not mentioned. Then I had a connect with the problem setter. Then he told me that internally it is running 5,000 test cases, that is why your solution is failing here. So then I had a complaint also that kindly mention this from the next time, kindly mention that internally it is using a lot of test cases. Okay, so for those who were able to solve clearly but were still able to get TLE, so like you were using sweep line algorithm or a difference array algorithm and the prefix sum, but still you are getting TLE, you are doing correct. The problem setter is the one who has not mentioned it. I also got a TLE. Okay, don't think that you are weak or Siddharth Hazra is able to solve everything. I'm not like that. Okay, I also get TLE. Then I asked him, where is that? Okay, so do I make sense? Give me a quick one. Okay, does that reduce? So why third problem was giving a time limit? I have written one solution. This is why it was giving a time limit exceeded. To be honest, I was also very much confused. I'm writing the correct code. Why still I'm getting a time limit exceeded? Try to see multi-source BFS in those visualizer and it would be clear. Yep. I took map and an array size of 22 power files, but got TLE in all the test cases. See. Okay. I think we are good to go. Okay, so let's see this problem now. Okay, so now we would learn a new concept. Suppose you in a particular question you are given two types of queries. The very first query is that add add the value x from L to R. Add the value x from L to R. You are given L and R and you need to add the value x to L to R. Okay. So now let's talk about the array also. Suppose this is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So if suppose the value of L, so the value, so now before that I would just tell you this. This problem has a prerequisite. The prerequisite of this problem is prefix sum. If you don't know prefix sum, I would quickly explain you. Prefix sum is all about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and replying queries in constant time. Okay, so suppose I'm given 1, 2, 1, 3, 7. Okay, suppose I'm asked that, like I'm asked continuously, what is the time complex, like what is the sum from L to R? What is the sum from L to R? So prefix sum allows us to quickly answer that. Okay, and if I'm moving forward to this question, it is assumed that you already know prefix sum. Okay, so in a particular question we are given an array and you are given a lot of queries. Okay, the queries would be in the form of x, L and R. Okay, given an array, add x from L to R and you are given this q number of times. Q number of times. Okay. So suppose you are given 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Suppose you are given that add 5 from 1 to 3. Okay. So I would go to 1. So suppose this value is 0, 0, 0. Initially all those, this is indexing. This is the index. This is the index itself. These are the values. So if I'm asked that add 5 from 1 to 3, the very first brute force approach would be I would go to 1, add 5, I would go to 2, add 5, I would go to 3, add 5. Okay, fair enough. And then the next query would be that go add 2 from 0 to 2. So I would go to 0, add 2. I would go to 1, add 2. I would go to 2, add 2, and then I won't go further. And suppose the next query is go and add 1 from 1 to 4. So I would go to 1, add 1. I would go to 2, add 1. I would go to 3, add 1. And I would go to 4 and add 1. So the resultant values are like this. So I would quickly write this down. So the resultant values are 2, 8, 8, 6, 1 and 0. Okay. So that this is the resultant value after doing all this. Okay. After processing these all queries, this is the resultant value. Okay. So the time complexity of this approach is big O of n. Why? Because in the worst scenario, L can be 0 and R can be n minus 1. So for one query, you would be moving from first element to the last element. So you would be processing n elements. So for answering one query, you would be having big O of n time complexity. So if you are given a lot of queries, then basically this would give you a time limit exceeded. So am I clear till this point or not? Give me a quick yes or no. Do I make sense? Okay. Shit, man. Okay. I have drawn a lot of things. Okay. Okay. Let's have a restart again. Okay. So see. Okay. Let's first talk about a thing known as prefixum. Okay. Suppose you are given a question, and in a particular question, you are given a query. The given query is that given an array, okay, given given an array, and you are given q queries. Okay, you are given q queries, and you are given the value x, and you are given L and R in each query. In each query, you are given value of x, L, and R. So I can say that the given array is, let's suppose, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And the indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Good to go? Yes. Now suppose I would just copy this. Okay. Now suppose I'm given the value of x, L, and R. The value of x, this is to be added. This is the value of L, and this is the value of R. Okay. So you given an array, you need to process this query, these many number of queries. Okay. Now let's start processing the query. So am I clear till this point? Just give me a quick yes or no. You are given an array and you are given few number of queries where you need to add the value x to L to R. Can you do this or not? Give me a quick yes or no. You can feel my pain. देरा दुरुस्त है बड़े बड़े चैनलों में छोटी छोटी बातें होती रहती है okay fair enough. Okay, so am I clear till this point or not? Okay, I'm clear. Okay, now let's start. So if you do this, we go from 1 to 3 and we add 5 to everyone. So we would go to 1, add 5, we would go to 2, add 5, we would go to 3, add 5. Then we would go from 0 to 2, add 2. So 0, we would add 2, then 1, we would add 2, then 2, we would add 2. Did this. Then I would go from 1 to 4 and I would add 1. I would add 1, I would add 1, I would add 1, and I would add 1. So the resultant values that is coming up is 2, 8, 8, 6, 1. 2, 8, 8, 6, 1. This is the resultant value of this array after processing these all queries. So now what is the time complexity to process one query? So in the worst scenario, the given L can be 0 and the given R can be -1. So we need to iterate from L to R and add 1. So we would basically loop. So time complexity would be big O of n because we are just doing arithmetic additions. So to process Q query, the time complexity would be big O of n into Q. So this would be the time complexity. Now tell me if I'm clear till this point or not. This would be the resultant array, this would be the queries, and this would be the time complexity of using this approach. Just tell me if I'm clear till this point or not. Like if you simply do a brute force application, this would be the answer to this. Do I make sense? Just give me a quick one. Okay. So I think that a few viewers who are very consistent with this analysis and all, I need to tell them that please explain one more time. Okay, I would just simply explain one more time. The given value was 0. So let's take this again. So suppose every value initially is 0. Okay. So it is told that I need to go from L to R and add the value 5. So I would go to 1, add 5. I would go to 2, add 5. I would go to 3, add 5. Then I would go to from 0 to 2 and I would add 2. So I would go to 0, add 2. I would go to 1, add 2. 5 plus 2 is equals to 7. I would go to 2, add 2. 5 plus 2 is equals to 7. And this would end because 2 is here only. Then I would go from 1 to 4 and I would add 1. I would go to 1, add 1. 7 plus 1 is equals to 8. 7 plus 1 is equals to 8. 5 plus 1 is equals to 6, and then 4 plus 0 plus 1 is equals to 1. So as you can see, the values are 2886100, 2886100. That is how this value is coming from. So हमें x का वैल्यू दिया है और ln r दिया जाएगा. ओके, सो हमें 0 l से लेके r तक इटरेट करना है इंडेक्सेस में और x ऐड कर देना है और लास्ट में एरे का जो भी वैल्यू आता है वो हमें रिटर्न करना है. This is the question itself. Now am I clear? So I'm explaining this for the third time. No issues. एटलीस्ट एक अच्छा कमेंट तो मिल ही जाएगा इतना करने के बाद. Okay, fair enough. I think we can move forward. Okay, so now let us move forward. The time complexity of this approach is big O of n. Okay, but we can do better than this. Okay, the idea is such that जब हम लोग queries को process करेंगे, when we are processing the query, we would go to big O of L and we would add the value of x, and we would go to L r plus 1 and we would subtract the value of x. First, we would do this. Whenever we are processing the query, we would add x to L and we would subtract x from r plus 1. And at the end, just build prefix sum. At the end, just build out the prefix sum. Build the prefix sum. And that would give you your answer. The small idea of this is known as sweep line algorithm. This is known as difference array algorithm. So whenever you need to do this, so adding this and subtracting this is constant, and building up the prefix sum is big O of n. So you are processing each query in a constant time. At the end, you just require big O of n again, and that would be very cheap. How this is working? Let me show you that also. So the given array was initially 0. So let's take 0 again. Let's take 0. Now let's add. So 5 is to be added at 1. So we would add 1 to, we would go to 1, we would add 5. L पे जाके x add करना है. R plus 1 पे जाके x minus करना है. We would go to R plus 1, that is 4, and we would subtract 5. So 0 minus 5 is equals to minus 5. Okay, fair enough, we have this. Now in the next, we would go to L, we would add 2, we would go to 0, we would add the value of 2. We would go to R plus 1, 2 plus 1, that is 3, and we would subtract 2. 0 minus 2 is equals to negative 2. Then again, we would go to L, that is 1, and we would add 1. We would go to 1, 5 plus 1 is equals to 6. And we would go to R plus 1, 4 plus 1 is 5. So we would go to 5 and we would subtract 1. At the end, you need to write the values that we have got up till now. See how this is working. So the values that we have obtained is 2 here, from here, 6 from here, 0 is unchanged, negative 2 from here, negative 5 from here, and negative 1 from here. And this would also remain unchanged, that is 0. So we would remove all these values. So these are the values that we have got after doing this thing. Now we would just do the prefix sum out of this. So the first value would remain same, that is 2 itself. 2 plus 6 is equals to 8. 8 plus 0 is equals to 8. 8 minus 2 is equals to 6. 6 minus 5 is equals to 1. 1 minus 1 is equals to 0. 0 plus 0 is also equals to 0. Now if you see that if I remove like the previous array, like this is after doing the prefix sum. Okay, if you see this array and this array is equal. So we are getting the same thing by doing this thing. Go to L, add x, go to R minus 1, remove x. And at the end, build out the prefix sum. You would be able to do this in constant amount of time. Okay, now how this is working? How this is working? What is the intuition behind it? So the intuition is, suppose this is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so suppose I want to suppose I from here to here I want to add the value x. So if I am adding x at this point, then I would do a prefix sum with x and this would get passed on. I want to do a prefix sum of x, this would get passed on. And if I do a prefix sum of this would get passed on also. But I don't want x to be passed on here. because I only want x to be contributed in this segment. So I want to remove the contribution of x at this point. So to remove the contribution of x at this point, I would simply do minus x. That is how, this is the intuition of the algorithm. This is the theory part of the algorithm. This is the visualization of the algorithm or the dry run of the algorithm. This is how you can use difference array to solve this kind of problem. Now, do I make sense? Give me a quick one. That took a lot of effort. And I'm speaking for the past around 1 hour 20 minutes, like 1.5 hours around. So am I clear till this point? What is the name of the algorithm? The name of the algorithm is sweep line algorithm or difference array algorithm. Okay. What happens when R is the last index? When R is the last index, we would simply do nothing, because when we would just see R plus 1 is within the last index or not. If R plus 1 is not within the boundary, we would just ignore it. Okay. Now let's move forward. So now see, in this question, first you are told that you need to add the contribution. So adding the contribution can be done by this algorithm only. Okay. So if you just go back to this question, best price, see. So see, Geek found a diamond in his garden. Okay. And he needs money. He want to sell that garden, but he's not aware how to sell it. So each friend is telling him low to high. So we would simply add from low to high that yes, one friend has recommended it. One friend has recommended it. So first let us do this. Let us do this, build out the prefix sum. Okay. So now let's say, so we have the price at 1324. Okay. Suppose we have the indexes as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Initially, no friend has suggested anything. So the values of the array would be 0, 0, 0, 0. Let's take one more. Why I'm taking one more? So that I don't need to handle the scenario of r plus 1. Like someone was asking me, na, what would be the scenario when r plus 1 is out of the range? So I would just take an array of size greater 1, like 1 plus. Okay, fair enough. Now, one friend is suggesting that 1 to 3. So I would go to 1, add the value 1. I would go to 2, add the value 1. I would go to 3, add the value 1. Then, so I would use this algorithm directly. Let's not go using brute force algorithm. So now, how many friend has suggested a particular point? Let us see that only. To find out how many friend has suggested, so this friend has suggested a range of 1 to 3. So this friend has suggested a range of 1 to 3. That means we need to add 1 to the range of 1 to 3. How many friends have suggested? So we need to add 1 to the range of 1 to 3. So we would go to 1, add 1. We would go to 3 plus 1, r plus 1, and we would subtract 1. Okay. Then we would go from 2 to 4. Okay, that means we need to go from 2 to 4, add 1 again. We would go to 2, 0 plus 1 is equals to 1, and we need to go 4 plus 1, that is 5, and we need to subtract 1. We are done. Now, after we are done, we would remove all these values so that we write the resultant value. So the resultant value we got was 0, 1, 1. Okay. So this would be -1. Okay. So now we would simply remove the values which have been updated, and then we would simply write 1, 1, -1, -1. Just wrote it in the same line. Remove it. Am I visible? Yes, I'm visible. Okay. Fair enough. Now we would build out the prefix sum. So first element would be that element only. Next element would be 0 plus 1, that is 1, 1 plus 1, that is 2, 2 plus 0 is equals to 2, 2 minus 1 is equals to 1, 1 minus 1 is equals to 0. So this many number of people have told me. Okay. Okay. So the index, the value 1 has been suggested by 1%. The value 2 has been suggested by 2%. The value 3 has been suggested by 2%. 4 has been suggested by 1%, and 5 have been suggested by 0%. Okay. Now, I am told that if the person would only consider a price if greater than equal to k person have suggested it, like the people who have suggested less than, like the values which have been suggested less than k are not valuable to him. Okay, translating the same in Hindi would be, वो ये बोलना चाह रहा है कि जो वैल्यूज k से कम लोग सजेस्ट किए हैं वो मेरे लिए मायने नहीं रखते हैं. The values which have been suggested by less than k number of people doesn't have any importance to him. So what we can do is we can only consider the values which are important, because the values which are not important won't make a difference. So 0 would make a difference to him? No. 1 would make a difference? No, because he wants two people to consider it. So that won't make a difference. 2 would make a difference? Yes, 2 would make a difference, of course. So 1, we would write, yes, this value makes a difference. This value makes a difference. 2 people. 1, no, he wants 2. So 0, 0. हम लोग क्या किए? What we have done just now is that we have just replaced all the values which can be considered by that person with 1 and all the other values as 0. जो भी वैल्यू उसके लिए कंसिडरेबल होगा उसको 1 कर दिए और बाकी सारे वैल्यूज को 0 कर दिए. Fair enough? Okay. Now I'm asked how many number we are considering from 0 to 4. How many values we are considering from 0 to 4. So basically it is just asking me the sum of all the values of 1, sum of L to R. If I just have this array to us, then I can simply say that 1 से लेके 4 तक इतने लोग आपको इतने values consider किए जा रहे हैं. If I'm given the value of L to R, I would be told that these all values are considerable. Like अगर मुझे पता है जो values consider नहीं हो रहे उनके value 0 है और जो value consider हो रहे उनके value 1 है, तो अगर simply हम 1 से लेके 4 तक, see, हम लोग 1 से लेके 4 तक अगर इनका sum निकाल देंगे, so we would get, yes, 2 values are considered. That is why the output is 2. If there were 3 values, the output would have been 3. That just means that if we achieve this thing, that we can simply use the sweep-lane algorithm. After sweep-lane algorithm, if that value is less than k, we would assign 0. If the value is greater than k, we would assign 1. After doing that, we would simply have a prefix sum of the whole array, and we can answer each of the values in prefix sum. How we can answer it? We can build up the prefix sum of this again. Let's see this also. Okay. So let's have the prefix sum of this array. 0, 0, 1, 0 plus 1, 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2 is equals to 2, 2 plus 0 equals to 2, 2 plus 0 is equals to again 2. Now if I'm asked the values from 1 to 4, I would say prefix sum of 4 minus. So the prefix sum tells us that sum from L to R is nothing but P of R minus P of L minus 1. So it just means that P of 4, which is 2, minus P of L minus 1. L is 1. 1 minus 1 is equals to 0. And 0 is sitting 0 here. So 2 minus 0, we are getting a 2. That is why this value is coming up. And we have this. Okay, so now I would be moving forward to the implementation, and I would implement the same things which I have told you. So we would just, for simpler implementation, we would just take a large value. Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's code it in VS Code only. Okay, we are good to go. Okay, we are good to go till this point. I would say this is equal to P. Okay, this is equal to P, and this is equal to NQ, and this is equal to Q, because I'm a very lazy person. I don't like to write. So now we would say that we basically need a large array to start off with. Okay, so here, if you see the constraint, the largest value is 10 to the power 6. So we can take a value of 10 to the power 6 plus 5, and this should work. But this is not working because internally the problem setters have used test cases. So that is why we need to find the largest value of n here. So first we would initialize the value of n is equals to 0. Okay, is equals to 0. And then we would start finding the values of the largest value of n. So we would iterate on the p array also, we would iterate on q array also. Okay, and we would find the value. So for int I is equals to 0, I is less than n, and I plus plus, and then we would say that n is equals to max of n, and then p of I comma 0, that is the opening range, and p of I comma 1, that is the closing range. So L and R both are considered. Okay, and int I, and that should solve the purpose. And then we would copy the same thing, we would paste it here, and the number of this would be nq, and this would be n is equals to max of ql and qr also. Okay, so now some person told me that what would be the scenario when r is in the last index. So to not have that condition, I would simply add plus 5. Like, this is a very random number, I would just take plus 5. I feel like plus 2 would also solve the purpose, plus 1 would also solve the purpose, but to be on the safer side, I'm more accustomed to using plus 5. Okay, now we would make a vector array of this big, vector int f of this big, and each value would be initialized with 0. Now we would start hashing the values. So for int I is equals to 0, I is less than n, and I plus plus. Now I would first find the L, as L is equals to P of I comma 0, and R is equals to P of I comma 1. Now I told you, how many of you remember this, that where is that? Go to L and add x, and go to R plus 1 and subtract x. So I would do the same thing here, what I have told. So we would say f of L, and we would add the value 1, and f of r plus 1, and we would subtract the value of 1. Okay, and now what we would do is, or we can simply do minus minus, that is same as subtracting 1, and here we would do simply plus plus. After doing this, I told you that build the prefix sum. So now we need to build up the prefix sum. So for int I is equals to 1, first element remains the same. So we would start from the second element. I is less than this value, the capital N, and I plus plus. And then I would say that f of I is equals to f of I plus equals to f of I minus 1. The current value plus the previous value. Current value plus the previous value. I told you. Is my screen visible? Let me just see. Okay, my screen is visible. So prefix sum is built. Now we would only consider the points which are greater than equal to x. Okay. So we would start from point 1 because point 0 does not exist. Here in the question we are told that everything is 1 indexed. So int I is equals to 1, I is less than capital N and I plus plus. And I would say that if f of I is greater than equal to the given value x, f of I would be equal to 1. You would be considered, else you would be thrown out. F of I is equals to 0. Done. We are considering the point, and now we would build up the prefix sum again. So building up the prefix sum of the same array would be this only. We would build up the prefix sum again. After prefix sum is built up again, now we would start replying the queries. Okay, so now we would say for int I is equals to 0, I is less than nq and I plus plus. Okay, again we would find int L is equals to q of I comma 0 and R is equals to q of I comma 1. We have found out L and R, and I told you that prefix sum tells us P of R minus P of L minus 1. So we would do the same thing, prefix sum values only. So the sum would be here we would initialize the answer because we need to return it in the form of vector. So we would say vector int answer. Okay. And then we would say that how we would find the sum. We would say answer dot pushback P of R minus P of L minus 1. As L is always 1, so we don't need to worry about anything. P of R, F of R, and F of L minus 1. The same thing I told you. F of R minus F of L minus 1. At the end, I would return the value of answer. Now I would simply run this and see. Okay, I made sense. So now I would explain you. So I would just try to submit this first and then I would share the tab and then you can ask me your queries. I would cater those queries and then I would just take a leave. The stream went beyond 1.5 hours. Okay, it's done. So now tell me the point at which you are not able to understand. So now I would simply share the screen. Okay, I'm already exhausted by now. Best price. Okay. So was trying to do it using overlapping intervals. Interesting. Thanks a lot. So I owe a chocolate from you. So range of the array can be taken till maximum of prices. Yes, absolutely. How to enable GFG dark theme? Basically, I use a dark reader extension to get a dark theme over everything because I'm very accustomed to the dark theme. Dark theme and warm white. Okay, warm white in the surrounding and dark theme on my laptop is the best thing I can have. Okay, so I don't see any issues popping up. That just means that I was able to resolve this. So I this time I didn't try to hurry up because few streams post contest analysis of GFG Weekly Coding Contest had a few confusions. Like people had a few confusions. I had few hate also regarding this stream. So this time I tried to be as calm as possible. I tried to handle all the elementary things also. Nothing has been skipped in the name of, you can already know, this is already told. I didn't try this. I this time I coded in the VS Code so I can simultaneously swap on the open board to explain you why this is written here. Okay, so this was done for your ease. If you think that this was good enough, kindly just let me know the feedback so that I would know this to continue or not, or should I implement better ideas to implement, so explain my things. So I think that was it from my side. If you have any queries, I would be waiting for the next 30 seconds, else I would be turning off the stream. So which drawing tool were you using? I have been using open board for the last 2 years now. Earlier I was using, I don't remember, a pen kind of thing, like it is named as. Okay, so I don't think I have any more questions to cater. So that was it for my side. If you're watching the stream in the recorded version, kindly support this initiative of having a contest and having a post contest analysis, everything for free. That's it for today. Thank you and have a nice day. Good night, everyone.